The Galactic Council's emergency session convened with unprecedented urgency. Ambassador Dax of the Kralix Dominion stood before the assembly, his scaled throat pulsing with agitation as holographic images flickered above the central podium. "This," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of genuine concern, "is what happens when you let humans near impressionable youth." The images showed chaos. Kralix cubs, apex predators whose species had dominated 3-star systems through sheer ferocity, were tearing through a space station's marketplace. But they weren't hunting for food or asserting territorial dominance. They were searching for colored eggs. "They've gone mad," Dax continued, gesturing at footage of a cub scaling a ventilation shaft, clutching a purple plastic egg like it contained the secrets of the universe. "They ignore their combat training. They've stopped eating proper meat." Yesterday, one of them tried to trade a classified military datapad for something called chocolate. The council murmured in confusion and concern. The Kralix were known across the galaxy as efficient warriors, their young trained from birth in the arts of tracking, hunting, and tactical superiority. Their cubs could disembowel prey twice their size before they learned to speak in complete sentences, and now they were hunting eggs. "How did this happen?" asked the Zenthari representative, her crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into worried rainbows. Dax's expression darkened. "A human, of course." 3 months earlier, the human specialist Mira had arrived at the Kralix training facility on Station Varash 9. She came highly recommended. Her xenopedagogy credentials were impeccable, and she'd successfully integrated human educational methods into 17 different species curricula. The Kralix Dominion had hired her to help their cubs develop creative problem-solving skills, something their traditional warrior education allegedly lacked. Dax had approved the hire himself. He would regret that decision for years to come. Mira was everything the Kralix expected from humans. Soft, small, seemingly fragile. She stood barely chest-height to an adult Kralix with none of their natural armor, claws, or predatory enhancements. The cubs had initially viewed her with the same interest they might show a particularly clever prey animal. "Good morning." "Little hunters," she'd said on her first day, smiling at the 10 cubs who stared at her with eyes designed to track movement in 3 different light spectrums. "I'm going to teach you something my people have done for generations. It's called Easter." Dax, observing from the facility's control room, had noted this in his log. A cultural exchange seemed harmless enough. He was catastrophically wrong. Mira began simply. She explained the concept of a hunt, but not for survival, for joy. She described hiding treasures and seeking them, the thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of finding what others had concealed. She spoke of spring, renewal, and celebration. The cubs' predatory instincts latched onto every word. Then she introduced the eggs, plastic, colorful, filled with small prizes. Mira had brought hundreds of them. She'd hidden them throughout the training facility's recreation dome, turning a space designed for combat simulation into a treasure field. "On your marks," she'd said, crouching down to the cubs' level. "Get set, hunt!" What happened next had been beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. The cubs exploded into action with a ferocity that would have made their warrior ancestors proud. They used every skill in their considerable arsenal: enhanced olfaction to detect the egg's plastic scent, thermal vision to spot temperature differences where Mira's hands had touched hiding spots, pack coordination to cover maximum territory, tactical communication to avoid redundant searches. Within 7 minutes, they'd found every single egg. Again, they demanded, their tails lashing with excitement. "Hide them again!" Mira had laughed, that strange human sound that somehow conveyed pure delight, and complied. It escalated, Dax told the council, his tone somewhere between admiration and horror. Rapidly, the cubs became obsessed. They began hiding things for each other: food rations, training equipment, eventually classified materials they definitely shouldn't have accessed. The concept of Easter egg hunts evolved in their predatory minds into something far more complex. They started creating elaborate puzzles, riddles that required solving before locations were revealed, multi-stage hunts spanning entire station sections, competitive tournaments where cubs formed teams and competed for the fastest completion times. Mira encouraged all of it. "Problem solving," she'd reported enthusiastically. "Teamwork, strategic thinking, they're exceeding every developmental benchmark. She wasn't wrong. The cubs' cognitive assessments showed unprecedented improvement. They'd learned to think creatively, to anticipate others' thoughts, to plan multiple steps ahead. Their spatial reasoning scores tripled, but they'd also stopped caring about traditional warrior training. Why practice talon strikes when we could be hiding quantum processors in the ventilation system? One cub had asked its instructor, genuinely confused by the question. The situation reached critical mass when the cubs organized a station-wide Easter egg hunt, enlisting other species' children, and accidentally locked down 3 military decks because they'd hidden eggs in secured areas. Mira had apologized, but Dax could see the pride in her eyes. "They're thinking outside the box," she'd said, using that peculiar human idiom. "Isn't that what you wanted?" "The point," Dax told the council, "is that humans are dangerous. Not because of their weapons or technology, those we understand. They're dangerous because they can take our most fundamental instincts and redirect them, refocus them. They turned our cubs' hunting drive into a game. And now those cubs are better strategists than our military academy graduates." He paused, letting that sink in. "Our cubs defeated a simulated invasion scenario last week using tactics learned from Easter egg hunts. They hid our entire defensive fleet in a debris field and created false sensor echoes that led the enemy into a kill box. When I asked them where they learned such deception, they said Mira taught them to think about where someone wouldn't look." The council chamber fell silent. "So what do you propose?" the Xanthari representative finally asked. Dax's scaled lips curled into something that might have been a smile. "I propose we hire more humans, and I want Mira to teach our military commanders next."